Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're focusing our lens on a topic that sits right at the intersection of breathtaking art and, frankly, intense physical athleticism. We're talking about dance injuries and proactive resilience. Whether you're a dancer yourself, a coach, or just somebody fascinated by the mechanics of human movement, this journey is definitely for you. We are going to map out exactly how dancers can protect their bodies while still performing at the absolute highest levels.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. When we watch a dance performance, what we see is this effortless grace, right? But what we don't see is the incredible blend of strength, flexibility, and sheer repetitive grit happening behind the scenes. Because dancers are literally constantly pushing their bodies into these incredibly challenging positions, that high training volume makes certain physical setbacks almost inevitable. We really have to empathize with that level of hard work to truly understand the reality of this daily wear and tear.
So here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the reality of dance. Number 2, foundation, feet and calves. 3, the joints, knees and hips. 4, the core, lower back. 5, daily habits for resilience. And finally, number 6, when to seek help.
All right, Section 1, the reality of dance. Because recognizing those frequent injuries and catching early warning signs is literally your very first line of defense.
Moving right along to Section 2, let's look at the foundation, the feet and calves.
We're going to begin our anatomical journey exactly where the dancer connects to the floor. Now, when we look at the risks, ankle sprains and foot strains completely spike during landing heavy styles. This is especially true when fatigue sets in, when you're practicing brand new choreography without the right conditioning, or, let's be honest, when you just skip warm-ups entirely. But on the prevention side, we can build some serious proactive resilience. We're talking controlled calf raises, targeted balance work, and technique-focused landing drills. It's really all about conditioning those specific foot structures against repeated impact.
Now, an absolutely crucial concept we need to talk about is progressive loading. Honestly, if you want to combat Achilles and calf tendon pain, this is your secret weapon. Instead of a sudden spike in intensity, which, just leads to tight calves and tendon overload, progressive loading means you safely and gradually build up your physical capacity. It's about letting those tissues naturally adapt to the stress over time.
And that brings us directly to the really high kinetic demands, like jumps, point A work, and those crazy sprint-like intervals. Look, if a dancer feels morning stiffness in the Achilles that kind of gets better with movement, or this persistent discomfort that just gets worse during rehearsal, that is tendon overload. You really shouldn't just push through it. Prevention here means modifying that sudden jump volume, and, you guessed it, employing that progressive loading we just talked about to gradually strengthen the calf.
Okay, Section 3, the joints, specifically the knees and hips.
As we travel up the kinetic chain, the structural demands shift. Now we're dealing with intense bending and tracking forces. You might hear medical terms thrown around, like patellofemoral issues, but let's just break that down into plain English. Simply put, this is just knee pain caused by tracking demands on the kneecap. When you get that ache behind the kneecap, or maybe some swelling after a really long rehearsal, it usually stems from overuse from repetitive bending and landing, or it's an underlying strength imbalance in the legs. So the crucial point is how we actually fix that imbalance. The big risks are that repetitive bending and landing. So the prevention absolutely requires supervised strength training. Specifically, dancers need to build coordination between their glutes, hamstrings, and quadriceps. It's like a giant puzzle. Strong hips and thighs dictate exactly how well that knee tracks, effectively protecting the entire joint from overload.
And what about the hips themselves? High kicks, deep turnout positions, rapid directional changes. They place immense stress on your hip flexors and the groin. Going right into sudden intensity with just a general, non-specific warm-up, that is a literal recipe for an adductor strain. The prevention here means using dynamic warm-ups that actually match the specific movements of that day's choreography, and of course, respecting your body's natural mobility limits while gradually progressing into those range-intensive moves.
Moving right on up to Section 4, the core and lower back.
This is your anatomical center. It stabilizes literally everything we've discussed so far. But actually, scratch that old school thinking. There's a huge misunderstanding in how we usually train it. The real risk to the lower back comes from overarching and doing these sustained extensions without enough support from the trunk. So the prevention is definitely not just doing hundreds of crunches for isolated strength. Real core training for dancers means emphasizing trunk and hip stability and movement endurance. Your core has to maintain structural control through incredibly fluid, demanding transitions.
All right, zooming out for Section 5, daily habits for resilience.
Let's look at the big picture, the overarching day-to-day routine. Effective injury prevention doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but it does require consistent habits. Step 1, movement-specific warm-ups, not just generic cardio, okay? Step 2, gradual volume increases so you avoid load spikes. Step 3, and this one is non-negotiable for tissue repair, prioritize your sleep and nutrition. And step 4, targeted strength training around those commonly stressed joints. This is exactly how you systematically build long-term resilience.
But let's be real, pain happens. Which brings us to a really critical question. Is what you're feeling just a normal ache from working hard, or is it an early warning sign of an actual injury? Knowing the difference there is the ultimate key to a long career.
Let's move to Section 6 and see how this builds. When to seek help.
Because sometimes those self-care habits just aren't enough. Look, we know dancers have this incredible drive to just push through the pain, but there are major red flags that require you to stop and consult a sports medicine professional. If your pain increases with practice, if it persists after resting, if it forces you to change your technique just to compensate, or no way if you experience swelling, radiating pain, or numbness, do not wait. Getting early management for these signs is what prevents a minor issue from turning into a devastating season-long setback.
I want to leave you with this fantastic quote directly from our source material. The goal isn't to avoid movement, it's to keep the body capable of the movement. By blending thoughtful preparation, smarter progression, and prompt care, you empower yourself to keep doing what you love for years to come. So think about it. How are you going to adapt your very next warm-up to better protect your body? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep moving safely.